Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 1986 giallo film, The Killer Is Still Among Us. And this one started not so great. It's not overall a great film, but I will say that it kind of got a little bit better as it went on. It rebounded a little bit story-wise. The performances are terrible. Let's just throw that out there. For the most part, the performances are really bad. And this isn't dubbed. I watched this on Shudder, and it is subtitled, so it's not like an issue of the dubbing being bad performances. It is straight up bad performance from the get-go. So let's get into this one. Directed by Camillo Teti, who also did Cobra Mission 2, Bye Bye Vietnam, Brothers in War, Navigators of the Space, and Titanic: The Legend Goes On. Written by Teti as well as Giuliano Carnimeo, who also did Anna, the Pleasure, the Torment, Rat Man, that sounds fun, The Case of the Bloody Iris, which I adore, and a lot of Western films. And also the big name when it comes to script writing who did so much in the past many decades, Ernesto Gastaldi, who did such titles as The Vampire and the Ballerina, Werewolf in a Girl's Dormitory, The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward, The Case of the Scorpion's Tail, All the Colors of the Dark, The Whip in the Body, Your Voice is a Locked Room and Only I Have the Key, Torso, The Suspicious Death of a Minor, The Scorpion with Two Tails, and The Case of the Bloody Iris. Lots of giallo. Gastaldi, when I see the name, I'm like, gotta watch it. He's like royalty, giallo royalty, in my opinion. This film is roughly based on apparently a real killer that was named the Monster of Florence, who was active from 70s and 80s. And that kind of comes across in the very end of the film with the message that it's kind of sending out there, as well as what it physically, actually says, has coming up on the screen about, a warning. But talk about that when we get to the end portion of this review. It is an interesting choice to start this film so silently, but it really does work because it signals the killer kind of destroying the calm, kind of like announcing himself to the world as I'm here to destroy everything that's serene and pristine in what's going on, because it's just nice nature sounds going on, and then it's destroyed basically by the gunshots of the first couple being killed. So I like that choice. I think it does work quite well. Typical giallo POV being used in this film. It's always effective at building even more dread. The giallo killer POV thing has always been a wonderful addition to film in general because it's been used a lot by many genres after that, and it's just super effective for, like I said, building dread, making you more scared because you see exactly where the killer is going from their own perspective and what they're doing, and sometimes how they're breathing, which makes it even more scary / creepy, and as they're sneaking up on their unsuspecting prey, and that plays out in this film. The first gunshot scared me, legitimately did, because like I was saying, the silence that was leading up to everything was very well done, and then just the gunshot ringing out, I didn't see it coming, because they had stuck with the couple for long enough time that I was kind of lulled into the sense of, I wouldn't say security, because I knew that the killer was there, obviously, but you just don't expect it when it actually happens. And I was not even assuming that he would have a gun. I was assuming, with a lot of giallo, it's mainly knives or something of that sort. So it really actually got me. I jumped. Such a weird long scene with the killer messing with the woman's body. I didn't understand that. I know it's probably supposed to show the person being sadistic and mutilating the body. Okay, I understand that much. But it's so weird because you're showing them just kind of do just these little pinpricks on the body with the knife. And what you could tell was actually happening from a film standpoint is it's one of those fake knives that has an injector that there's blood tube inside of it, and you kind of press something down and the blood will come out. So they were putting it down and leaving it long enough so blood would actually come out of the end of the knife. So kind of messes with the film a bit. Plus, like I said, it's just too long. It just goes on too long. But that's a problem in general with the film. There's so many scenes that just go on way too long, and they either aren't giving you a whole lot of information, or they gave you the information, and then they're just still going on, and you're like, okay, we can move on here. Interesting transition from the legs of the dead woman in the beginning to Christiana's legs before she gets out of bed. I thought that was cool. And then obviously she's getting the phone call at that point saying that there was this murder, and she's a criminology student doing her dissertation, so she needs to go and get involved, obviously. Obviously, this is what she should be doing as a student. Not really. Gotta love that the shot of Dr. Alex cutting the cadaver is obviously clay. The dead body he's cutting open is obviously clay. I thought that shot was really funny for that reason. And there's a bunch of those types of things that happen within this film, kind of like also, that fake knife with the blood coming out. Same thing. They focus on it too much. They show it in a way that you're just like, oh, that looks terrible. Like, what's actually going on. And this is in the 80s. This film came out in the 80s, so it doesn't have the excuse of some of the films of, 60s, 70s, whatever. And there are even films in those decades that did way better. It's ridiculous. Things between Christiana and Dr. Alice move ridiculously fast. Literally, they meet. She looks at the dead body. Well, I think she only looks at the one body. She looks at one of the bodies of the murdered couple. Then he's basically like, you want to go out for a drink? Well, I don't think he even says something. They go out, it jumps to them going out for a drink, which I'm like, did we miss something? And then he asks her to go to a show with him, and then it jumps to that, and I'm just like, are we missing things here? Because there's like pretty much no dialogue between them, and especially no dialogue is like, I'm interested in you, I am also interested in you. It's just like they were just thrown together in this film, and it doesn't feel realistic whatsoever, but that's kind of giallo writing sometimes, unfortunately. Dr. Alex acts super suspicious. Obviously, he is supposed to be the biggest red herring throughout this entire film. He is consistently suspicious. There are consistently things that kind of point at him as the potential killer very strongly, and he just acts like a creep, But that could be explained by just the fact that he works with dead bodies. That can... people who do that may not have the most interesting personalities. They may not be the most social, maybe a little off. I don't know. What's with the random dude with the blown back hair? Later, we find out his name is Beery, and he ends up being a suspect, which Christiana is like sure that since he was arrested and being questioned, he's the guy. But when you first see him, he's just like that crazy blown back hair. I was like, that's a choice. But then he's talking to Professor Leonardi, and it's like he works for Leonardi, and I was like, I didn't really get the connection there, so if anyone could kind of explain to me the connection between those two in the comments, or maybe there wasn't one, maybe it was just like, there is a connection, but there's not really a connection, because this isn't a great film, so could just not be explained. I like how the commissioner and Dr. Alex tell Christiana to drop her criminology studies. I don't know if it's a sexism thing, or like they just think it's too dangerous, or both of those things combined, but she gets from numerous people, you should drop this, you should not do this, you should get out of the study. But she's at a point where she's working on a PhD in criminology. Like, that is not the time to tell someone you should just drop this. I think in some instances they were talking about just drop this specific case for your dissertation and maybe focus on something else, but in general, I think they were just saying, like, you should just not be in criminology. I'm like, They sure do make Dr. Benincasa over the top, brandishing a knife when she asks him about the murder. She went for, like, psychoanalysis stuff, and he just, like, yells at her and brandishes a knife. Another way to make him look like a very strong suspect. So, obviously, Benincasa is another one of those red herrings. Very over the top, though. The entire scene at the Devil's Tavern, very long, relatively nonsensical. What do we get out of that? We get out of that she basically hires these people to spy on, I think it's Dr. Benincasa at that point, like getting it on with some woman in a car. Okay, I get that, but we didn't need that long drawn out scene to get to that. I kind of enjoyed the scene for a little bit, but then I'm like, this is just going on way too long, and there's really not much happening. I like the concept of the Devil's Tavern. That's cool. But yeah. I did find the whole espionage in the woods scene kind of quirky and fun, though. Where they're actually, the people she's hired are actually kind of doing their thing. That was fun. It felt intriguing. It felt interesting. Like I said, it felt quirky. I had a good time with that. One of my favorite scenes in the film. Why do we have to watch Christiana make coffee? Now, this is just kind of a question in general for a lot of scenes in the film, usually focused around Christiana, where there's nothing going on for the most part. It's just her kind of doing stuff. Like, there was one, too, where she's just, like, going outside and getting in her car and driving away. It's like, do we need to see this? So I don't know if that stuff was just put into, like, stretch runtime or what, but these are some of the big issues with the film. The announcement of Beery being arrested means he's obviously not the killer, because there's plenty left in the film, I think like half an hour at that point. But Christiana, mind you, a criminology student, just easily believes that it's him. So obviously, she's not the best criminology student, because she's not learning that you need to, like, actually find evidence and actually question people and look into multiple suspects. She's just like, oh, first person who was caught and being questioned? Yep, obviously they did it. I think at this point she was just ready to drop being suspicious of everyone, like she says later, including, and most importantly, her lover, her odd lover, Dr. Alex. Really cool shot in the dark with the blinking red light and the man's shadow that crosses over the shadow of Christiana. I thought that was a really cool scene. Just shot really well, very interesting. Super aesthetically pleasing, obviously, so I really like that. And I like how Alex just tries to force his way into that house, but doesn't say anything about, let me in or unlock the door or something, because he knows that Christiana's at home. Like, they had a conversation about her being at home and him going out, and then she also, like, wanted his keys because she had a problem with her keys. And I also don't like that, like, to start that scene, they focus on the keys sitting there. It just reminds you, oh yeah, he doesn't have the keys, which is like, why would you be doing that? It's to signal that it's Alex trying to come in the house. It's not a killer. So that really does downplay the feeling of danger and the feeling of dread for Christiana. So it just works against it. I like how Alex, literally just said that. The bartender at the Devil's Tavern being dead is a no-brainer when he's found dead, since it's a giallo, and since he told Christiana when she was there initially that he would give her information later. Like, this is the thing within giallo films. If a character says that they have something to tell like another character, but they don't tell them right then on screen, they're going to die. They will not have the ability to pass along that information. That is always how it is with giallo. Pretty much always. Benincasa bringing the Norzitam to Alex insinuates one of the two as the killer, since it was found at the crime scene. Although, as we know by the actual ending of this film, there really isn't an answer. We just know that it's not actually Dr. Alex. Other than that, we don't know who it really is. Oh, also, supposedly it's not Beery, because he ends up being released because there's another murder with the same MO that happens while he's detained. So, yeah. But the Norzitam was found at the original crime scene of the first couple that was killed, and therefore that's tied into, this has something to do with the killer. The killer's taking this Norzitam, which they say is to balance the nervous system, which they also say is needed for people who work with dead bodies. Don't know why. They don't really explain it, but it's a thing. Pretty bad struggle for Antonella and Paolo, one of the couples that ends up getting killed, the one you actually see when they're trying to, like, escape. They basically see the Reaper slowly walking towards them as they can't go anywhere. Because Paolo's trying to drive the car away, he gets stuck in that pothole in the mud, he keeps trying to get it going, then he tries to get out the door, and there's a big branch there. Like, that's a terrible way to go. Like, that's a heartbreaking, terrible struggle to watch, because you feel from their perspective how awful that is. Like, you see death coming at you. It's not a situation where, like, you don't see it coming and then you're dead really quick. That's prolonged fear, and that's hard. I'm with Alex that the seance to summon Antonella's spirit and identify the killer is a stupid idea. He places no stock in this. He thinks it's ridiculous, and I fully agree with him. And then the scene that we get that's doing the intercutting, which I literally said, of like the third couple being murdered, and then the seance going on, and they keep going back and forth. Such a ridiculous long scene. It's another one of these scenes I'm talking about where you're not getting a ton of information from it, but it just keeps going and going and going. I don't get it. I just don't get it. And I was not a fan of that. But I'm with Alex. Bad idea. How about the pube cutting scene? Another scene that up close does not look good. You can tell that like the hand was placed there, and then they were just kind of like make-believing that they were having like resistance cutting and everything. You can see that with the nipple as well. He's got like the nipple that's already like the prosthetic nipple that's already detached, and he's like holding it against the body while trying to make it look like he's cutting it off, and you can see parts of it already coming off that aren't supposed to be cut yet. Yeah, pretty rough. But the pube cutting scene, I can say that's something I've never seen in a film before, so there's that for it. Kind of an interesting ending with you not knowing who the murderer truly is, and then they have that thing come up being like, this is a warning, like, you know, killers are on the loose, be careful type thing. I do like that aspect where it's kind of like, you don't get your answer. It's not necessarily someone who is involved here. This stuff is complicated, and sometimes the killers are not caught. And that's scary, and that's something to keep in mind, and that's something to be concerned about. So be careful out there, basically. Although, what that does mean is that Christiana basically gets to continue to live in fear. She does know at this point that Dr. Alex is not the killer, so that's a good relief. She can, you know, be with him still in a relationship and not worry about that, but she doesn't know who it is. And she was already freaking out about suspecting other people, too. So I assume at the end of this film, she still suspects other people. Potentially even Professor Leonardi. Who knows? Lots of the scenes feel very awkward. They're either too long with little substance or too oddly brief, also with a small amount of substance. There isn't enough story in this film to justify how long it is, so the pacing is not good. But overall, it's not the worst film. There's some really interesting stuff. There's some cool looking stuff like I've already talked about. So it's not a terrible film. Like, this is one that maybe I could watch again with someone. Probably not on my own, though. Character interaction is also very unhuman, partially due to the poor acting. Actually, a lot to do with the poor acting. Also, I don't think the script for this was that great either. So sorry, Ernesto. I know you've done some really good stuff, but this is not one of them. Which is probably why it's part of the Forgotten Giallo that Vinegar Syndrome put out. I believe this is from Volume 5? No, 4. They don't have Volume 5 on Shudder right now. Volume 4. So yeah. But the interactions are so terrible, and it's partially because the dialogue's not great. It's partially because of the way it's shot, and it's the acting. The acting's very poor, so like, yeah. Like, you don't see any of the character interactions as very realistic. At least I didn't. Man, this film takes its time getting anywhere. Like I said, really bad pacing. It's not in a hurry to do anything, really. It's like, we'll just give you the information at a slow trickle. And that's what you end up with. But I enjoyed it enough for one watch, I will say. Would be very interested to see what other people are going to say about this film. So go ahead, put it in the comments if you loved it, you hated it, or you're in between on it. Would love to hear that. Out of 5 stars with half stars in play, I'm going to give this a 2-star rating. I was between 1.5 and 2, but I'm going to go 2 because I feel like there was enough interesting stuff, plus that ending being interesting to me, that I'll give it 2 stars, but know that I consider 1.5, so it's kind of like in between there. But do me a quick favor, hit subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I would greatly appreciate that. Also hit the notification bell button. That way you'll know when I'm putting up new videos, including giallo reviews, which I'm going to keep doing for a bit now. Also, do me a favor real quick. In the comments, if you have certain giallo films that you want me to review that I have not reviewed already, just put those in the comments. There are some I've written down from people, but there are also ones that people that have been brought to my attention by people that I forgot to write down, and I don't know where that information is anymore. So share with me whatever ones you want me to review, and I'll work on it for sure. You know, no guarantee on when it's going to be, but yeah. But thank you very much for taking your time to watch this video. I really do appreciate it. And until next time, keep it brutal.